My name is Eva D'Antonio, and when this story really started, I was 19 years old and chewing on the driest piece of chicken on planet Earth. You ever sit at a family dinner, listening to everyone brag about their shiny futures, and realize you've accidentally become the don't end up like her example? That was me at the end of the table. My cousin Jill had just gotten into Cornell. My older sister Madison was going to Yale in the fall. My parents practically glowed when the words Ivy League hit the air. Meanwhile, my big accomplishment of the week was unclogging Mrs. Garber's ancient kitchen sink without losing my lunch. Jill's always been a hard worker, Aunt Karen cooed, patting Jill's hand like she'd cured cancer and solved world hunger in one Common App essay. And Madison, oh, our Madison, Mom added, her voice going soft and reverent. Yale, can you believe it? Everyone turned to look at my sister like she was already walking across the stage in a cap and gown. Dad topped off her glass of sparkling cider like he was pouring holy water. Then Mom's eyes landed on me. And Eva's always been handy, she announced, with that tight little smile she reserved for things she couldn't brag about but couldn't ignore. Dad chuckled. Yeah, our Eva can fix anything. Sinks, leaky faucets, you name it. She's our little pipe whisperer. The table laughed. I didn't. Not because I don't have a sense of humor. I do. It's just hard to laugh when you realize the joke is the only version of you your parents bother seeing. I kept chewing my overcooked chicken and stared at the condensation on my water glass, thinking about the leaky faucet I had to fix at 7 a.m. the next morning. That faucet would pay me $85 cash. College, on the other hand, wanted $200,000 and a lifetime of student loan anxiety in exchange for a piece of paper and maybe a job. Nobody at that table wanted to hear that math. In my family, there was a script. Madison was the brilliant future lawyer. Jill was the pre-med genius. And me? I was the almost kid, almost as smart, almost as promising. The one who could have gone far if she just applied herself. Applied herself to what, exactly? Hating her life for a living? I swallowed my mouthful of chicken and let my mind drift back to the conversation that had started this whole mess. When I told my parents I was enrolling in trade school instead of a 4-year college, Mom blinked at me like I'd just announced I was joining a traveling circus. Oh, sweetheart, she said slowly, voice dipped in pity. You're better than that. Better than what? I asked. Better than plumbing? Her lips pressed into a thin line. Not like that. You have potential, Eva. There it was, the cursed word. In my house, potential meant, we're disappointed in you, but we'll dress it up so we don't look like bad parents in front of the neighbors. Dad tried a different angle. You'll regret not getting a real education, he warned, arms crossed. You can't fix sinks forever. I'd wanted to say, watch me, but I didn't. I just nodded, walked into my room, and filled out the trade school enrollment form on my secondhand laptop while my parents loudly discussed how to get Eva back on track in the hallway. Funny thing is, trade school was the first place I'd ever felt on track. At 7 a.m. every morning, I showed up with my bag of tools and my hair shoved into a messy bun, surrounded by people who didn't care about GPAs or Latin honors. They cared about not flooding the crawl space and not electrocuting themselves. By the time Madison graduated high school with honors, I'd already fixed my first busted water heater and earned my first repeat customer. While she practiced case competition speeches, I practiced resealing garbage disposals while being barked at by Pomeranians named Mr. Buttons. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And there was something deeply satisfying about taking apart a disgusting, soap scum-filled sink trap, putting it back together, and watching the water finally drain the way it was supposed to. I liked that feeling, the quiet click of working. Too bad nobody in my family cared if something worked. They cared if it impressed people. On paper, my life at 19 looked like a cautionary tale. I was living in a tiny apartment with mismatched furniture, working long hours, and going to classes that left my hands raw and my clothes reeking of pipe glue. Off paper, there was one thing I had that nobody at that dinner table did. Someone who actually believed in me. His name was Jonah. We'd met in high school art class, both of us mercilessly bullied by the pottery wheel. He grew up on the right side of town, but unlike the rest of them, Jonah thought trade school was badass. So you're basically a superhero for people with crappy plumbing, he'd said when I told him my plan. He was a freelance graphic designer now, which meant he spent a lot of time in sweatpants hunched over his laptop, making logos for small businesses and editing videos for people with YouTube channels and big dreams. He never once called what I did settling. When I dragged myself home after class and jobs, he'd be there with cheap takeout and, How many pipes did you defeat today? 3 pipes, 1 toilet, and the ghost of my father's expectations, I'd reply, kicking off my steel-toe boots by the door. We laughed about it, but underneath the jokes, something was quietly building. Money, sure, skills definitely, but also a business. At first, it was just me and my tools, showing up in my old sedan, hoping nobody would judge the fact that my trunk latch needed to be kicked twice before it closed. But word spread faster than black mold in a damp basement. The lady with the leaky laundry room told her neighbor. The neighbor told her sister. And suddenly, people were saying, "Ask Eva. She shows up." One night, I flopped on the couch next to Jonah, joints aching, and said, "I think I need a van." He muted his video. "Like, a real van? For your own thing?" I shrugged, pretending that my heart wasn't pounding. "I mean, yeah, I'm already basically running a business. I should probably stop pretending I'm not." He stared at me for a long second, then grinned. "Okay, boss, let's build you an empire." The van I could afford was a 2010 monstrosity that smelled like expired cologne and stale fries. But it ran. Barely. Jonah helped me scrub it out in the parking lot behind our building. We worked under the orange glow of flickering streetlights, laughing every time one of us found another mystery stain. "So, what are you going to call it?" he asked, leaning against the side panel. "I don't know," I said, chewing my lip. "Eva's Plumbing sounds like I fix relationship problems." "Pipe Dream Plumbing," he said instantly. I snorted. "Like the dream is that the pipes work, or the dream is that my parents will someday respect what I do?" "Both," he said, already sketching the words with his finger on the metal. "Come on, it's perfect." It shouldn't have been. It was cheesy. It was bold. It was everything my family would roll their eyes at, which is exactly why I loved it. We spent the next few nights huddled over his laptop designing a logo. He drew a wrench and a drip of water and somehow made it look cool instead of corny. "You know this is real now, right?" he said, clicking save. "You're not just fixing sinks, you're building something." I tried to play it off, but my chest felt too full. "Yeah, well, don't tell my mom. She thinks this is still a phase." Jonah smirked. Pretty sure phases don't come with commercial insurance quotes. It was his idea to make the ad. It started as a joke. He mocked up a Facebook post with the logo, a photo of me standing in front of the van, and the tagline, "Got a drip that won't quit? Call Pipe Dream Plumbing. Local, licensed, and we actually show up." We howled laughing on the couch. "You look like you're about to arm wrestle a pipe," Jonah said. "I look like my mom's worst nightmare," I replied. "Please don't actually post that." 2 days later, the ad was live. "I set the budget to almost nothing," Jonah reassured me when I glared at him. "Relax. Only like 5 people will see it." He was wrong. By the end of the week, the ad had comments. A lot of comments. "Used her last month. Amazing service. Respect the hustle. Finally, a plumber who doesn't ghost midway through the job." One name stood out. Savannah, Jonah's ex. Her comment was short. A little knife inside a compliment. "Guess you finally found someone who can fix things for you, Jonah. Good for you both." I pretended not to care, but the words dug under my skin. I was still frowning at my phone when it buzzed again. This time it was Mom. 3 missed calls, then a text. "Mom, Eva, since when do you have vans?" No hi. No, how are you? Just straight to the point, like my business was an offense she'd discovered on her feed between a muffin recipe and Jill's med school announcement. I stared at the screen, heart thudding. The ad, the van, the logo, everything I'd built quietly in the background had just exploded into the center of the family stage. I answered on the 4th call. "Hello? Since when do you have vans?" she repeated, skipping any pretense of small talk. "Hi, Mom, I'm fine, thanks for asking." "Eva," she snapped, "we just saw something on Facebook. Are you running some kind of plumbing operation?" I glanced at Jonah, who mouthed, "You've got this." I took a breath. "Yeah, it's my company, Pipe Dream Plumbing. I've had the van since spring. I'm licensed, bonded, insured, and apparently I actually show up, so that's a plus." There was a long, loaded silence. "We just assumed you were still freelancing," she finally said, like the word tasted sour. "You never told us you were expanding." "You never asked," I thought. Out loud I said, "Well, now you know." I hung up a few minutes later, the call ending on a lukewarm, "Well, it's impressive," that sounded more like a question than a compliment. That night, as I lay on the couch with my head in Jonah's lap, watching the ad's comments stack up, one thought kept circling in my brain. For years, they'd acted like my work wasn't real. Now that it was too visible to ignore, they were finally looking. I just didn't know yet that this sudden attention wasn't pride. It was the beginning of a negotiation. And in my family, we're so proud of you, always came with a favor they hadn't asked for yet. Because once my family realized my little plumbing phase had become a full-fledged business, vans, logo, clients, reviews, they did what they always do when something suddenly looks impressive. They tried to rebrand themselves as the ones who always believed in me. The first wave came 2 days after the Facebook ad went semi-viral. A local lifestyle magazine reached out. Subject line, Spotlight feature. Rising tradespeople in the city. They wanted to interview me. Me, the girl my mom once called directionally confused. I said yes. They came out, took pictures of my van, my tools, even me kneeling under a sink, pretending to tighten a bolt. I'd already tightened twice just so it would look dynamic on camera. Jonah hovered behind the photographer, grinning like he was watching his favorite plot twist unfold. When the article dropped, I nearly fainted at the headline. From wrench to riches, the young woman, reinventing plumbing. Cheesy? Yes. Accurate? Also, yes. But the real shock wasn't the article. It was my mom. She posted it on Facebook with the caption, "So proud of my daughter, Eva. Always knew she had it in her." I stared at the post so long my eyes blurred. Always knew? Lady, you told me plumbing was a phase like my middle school obsession with horses. Even worse, all her friends commented. She's such a hard worker. You raised her well. Look at your talented girl. Meanwhile, my notifications lit up with friend requests from distant relatives who had ignored me for years. I felt sick. Business blew up. Not influencer viral, not Shark Tank viral, but the kind of quiet, local viral where suddenly you can't keep up with calls. Your schedule is booked 2 weeks out. People whisper, "Ask Eva, she actually shows up," like you're some urban legend with a wrench. By month 9, I couldn't keep up alone. So I hired my first real employee, Eli. Ex-military, quiet, could talk a panicked homeowner through shutting off a water main like he was reading a bedtime story. Then came Reggie. Loud, fast. Judged my playlist less than my family judged my life choices. We made a good team. Jonah helped design matching shirts and updated the website. He was like the unofficial creative director of Pipe Dream Plumbing. Half partner, half cheerleader, 100% the reason I didn't collapse from stress. I bought a second van, wrapped it, named her Vanessa, because why not? And still, I didn't tell my family. They didn't ask anyway. Except one time at a barbecue, Mom introduced me with, "This is Eva. She fixes things, pipes and those kinds of things." I swear she said it like I was a forest goblin who lived under the sink. Meanwhile, my sister Madison got toasted for shifting metrics in an unpaid internship. Cool. Then came Savannah, Jonah's ex-girlfriend, who I had never met but always felt lurking in the digital shadows. She popped up again when Jonah posted a photo of the new van. Her comment, "Wow, Jonah, crazy how things change. Glad you're doing better now." Better? Better because of what, me? Or because he wasn't with her? Her comments were always dipped in sugar, coated in venom. Jonah told me to ignore her. I tried. But you know what stings? When someone talks about your success like it's borrowed. Like it only counts because of the man next to you. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling while Jonah slept beside me. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't jealous. I was angry because Savannah didn't know me, but she seemed to think she knew my worth. I promised myself I'd prove, to myself, not to her, that Pipe Dream was mine. A week later, I got the invitation that terrified and thrilled me. Local Entrepreneur Summit, panel speaker. Topic, non-traditional paths to business ownership. They wanted me to speak. Me, Eva D'Antonio, girl who once shorted out Mrs. McCarthy's bathroom lights because I touched the wrong switch. Jonah practically shoved me into saying yes. "You built a company from scratch," he said. "Tell people how. Inspire them." I spent a week practicing in front of Jonah, Eli, and Reggie, who kept giving me terrible advice like, open with, "What's up, nerds?" Reggie. "Flex your biceps. People love that." Reggie again. "Please don't listen to Reggie." Eli. On the day of the panel, I wore clean jeans, a clean button-down, and boots that didn't smell like insulation for once. I was shaking like a loose pipe. Then I saw someone in the audience, a teenage girl, hands calloused, wearing a neon safety vest and steel-toe boots. Someone like me. And suddenly the words came. I talked about sinks and expectations and being the disappointment at the dinner table. I talked about building something real, not something photogenic. Success doesn't always wear a suit, I said. Sometimes it wears coveralls and smells like copper and Gatorade. People laughed, people clapped. Afterward, the teen girl came up to me. "I thought I had to go to college," she said softly. but maybe I just need to work. I gave her my card. Maybe in 5 years she'll be standing on a stage instead of me. That night, when I came home buzzing from adrenaline, Jonah was waiting with takeout and a grin. "You were perfect," he said. "I think I sweat through my shirt," I replied. "Still perfect." But when my phone buzzed a few minutes later, the rush evaporated. "Mom, saw your magazine thing again. You really turned out great, Eva. Maybe we can do dinner soon." Dinner, with no holiday, no birthday, no obligation. Suspicious. "Define want," Jonah said after I showed him the text. We joked about it, but the truth was heavy inside me. My parents weren't suddenly proud. They were suddenly aware. Aware that I had built something. Something too big to ignore. Too visible to pretend they'd support it all along. And I didn't know it yet, but that sudden attention, it wasn't love. It was preparation. Because the bigger I became, the more they wanted a piece. And the big ask, was coming. Because the more Pipe Dream Plumbing grew, the more my parents suddenly acted like they'd believed in me since the day I held a toy wrench. Spoiler, they hadn't. The week after the entrepreneur panel, something shifted. We were getting too many jobs, too many calls, too many "hey, can you squeeze us in" messages. Not a bad problem, but a problem. So I took a breath and did something I'd never imagined. I signed a lease for a tiny warehouse. It wasn't glamorous. It smelled like rubber, dust, and the ghost of someone's failed woodworking hobby. But it was mine. Eli hung the Pipe Dream sign on the wall. Reggie brought a Bluetooth speaker and immediately blasted 90s rap. Jonah took photos of everything for future PR. And I just stood there for a moment, overwhelmed. This was real. This was happening. I was building something that couldn't fit in the back of my old sedan anymore. Then came the third van. A white beauty with low mileage, clean interior, and enough space to store tools without everything falling on me when I opened the back. I named her Vanessa 3, because at that point, why fight the theme? But a van needs a driver. That's how I met Kayla. She'd been working for a big corporate plumbing chain until they restructured, which was code for firing the competent employees first. She had the kind of quiet confidence you only get from surviving years of dealing with terrible customers and worse managers. We shook hands in a parking lot outside a greasy diner while she showed me her toolbox. "You'll shadow Eli this week," I told her. "If all goes well, the third van's yours." Her eyes lit up. "I won't let you down," she said. And she didn't. By lunch on day 1, she'd already closed 2 jobs solo. Meanwhile, Reggie accidentally became our social media manager. All it took was one TikTok he filmed of himself dramatically plunging a toilet while opera music played in the background. That ridiculous video hit 80,000 views. Suddenly, people were commenting, "Where's the Pipe Dream merch? Eva is the queen of plumbing. Eli is my new comfort character." I didn't understand half the comments, but business jumped. Reggie printed stickers. Kayla designed shirts. Eli threatened to make a LinkedIn for me with the title, CEO of Drains. I let him. Then came the moment everything cracked open a little wider. I came home from a brutal triple shift, the kind where you question whether people should be legally allowed to own garbage disposals, only to find an envelope taped to my apartment door. No return address, just my name in looping, careful cursive. Eva. Inside was a thank you card. Front, community hero. Inside, thank you for showing up at 3 a.m. when no one else would. You saved my bathroom, my floor, and my sanity. Linda. It was simple. It was honest. It hit harder than any text my family had ever sent me. I stuck it on my fridge with a magnet shaped like a wrench. And that night, staring at that card, I realized something. A stranger saw me more clearly than the people who raised me. Of course, right when life felt balanced, the past knocked again. And by knocked, I mean barged in, wearing a pastel blazer and smiling like she owned the room. Savannah, Jonah's ex-girlfriend. She didn't show up physically, not yet, but she started circling online again. One day she commented under the viral TikTok, "Cute, looks like Jonah's finally found someone stable to work with." Work with? I wasn't Jonah's intern. I wasn't his project. And I sure as hell wasn't his charity case. Jonah saw my face and groaned. "Babe, ignore her. She thinks we're still living in some past version of my life where she mattered." "I'm not jealous," I muttered. "I know you're not. Savannah just does this thing where she tries to make everything about her. Let her spiral." But it wasn't jealousy. It was the sting of someone assuming I was only successful because of him. Pipe Dream Plumbing was mine. Jonah contributed, sure, but I'd built this thing with my bare hands and busted knuckles. I didn't need Savannah's approval, but she'd planted something ugly inside me. Something that whispered, "Some people will never see you as enough." While Savannah stirred the online pot, my family stirred their own kind of drama. Mom started posting throwback photos. Eva at age 4 in overalls holding a plastic wrench. Eva in a kiddie pool next to a toy toolbox. Eva wearing a Home Depot apron for Halloween. Caption: always had the tools. Our girl was destined. Destined? Mom, when I was 20, you cried in a Panera because I told you I wasn't applying to Brown. Yet there she was, reinventing her past like she was ordering a new personality off Amazon. I showed the post to Jonah. She's rebranding herself, he said, deadpan. Your mom is doing PR on her own parenting. That became a running joke among the team. New PR drop from Mom? She's prepping the audience for something big. Plot twist, she launches a Momfluencer account. It was funny, until it wasn't. Because deep down I knew they were right. Mom wasn't doing this out of pride. She was preparing the stage. A week later, something massive happened. I walked into the warehouse to find everyone staring at the wall. But not just any wall, the blank wall. Except it wasn't blank now. Jonah had covered it with a giant vinyl poster, crisp and glossy. A real Billboard design. The photo was dramatic. Me standing between the vans, arms crossed, sun hitting the metal just right. The tagline, Pipe Dream Plumbing, locally owned, proudly independent. Yes, Mom, it's a real business. I stared at it, mouth open. You didn't. Jonah grinned. I absolutely did. It's huge. It's accurate. Eli nodded solemnly. This is the best day of my life. Reggie said, I'm printing hoodies. And then, only a day later, someone spotted the billboard for real. Jonah had actually bought the ad space, right off the freeway exit, right where half my high school would see it every morning. Someone posted a photo of it on Reddit, and it exploded. Comments poured in. This is iconic. Eva is my new idol. I don't even live there, and I want to hire her. The shade at her mom? Business tripled in 1 week. I had to buy extra shelving, extra parts, extra coffee. But while the world celebrated me, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't want to read. Mom, we still haven't heard from you. We're trying to fix things. Let us know when we can talk. Fix things? This wasn't fixing. This was optics. This was fear of looking like the parents who never supported the daughter who now had a giant billboard off I-75. I typed a message, then deleted it. Because what I wanted to say was, you didn't like what I was building when it was small. You only like it now that it's big. That's not support. That's convenience. But I didn't send it. Some silences are heavier than words. I buried myself in work. That helped. So did something unexpected. A visit from 2 fourth graders and their teacher. They showed up outside the warehouse holding a flyer. Career Week guest speaker. Eva D'Antonio, pipe boss. Are you Ava? One girl asked shyly. Depends, I said. Did someone send you here as a prank? She shook her head and held up a drawing. It was me. Cape, wrench, van. The whole superhero treatment. It broke something open inside me. You're our class guest, she said. We wrote essays about you. My throat tightened. You did? The teacher smiled. You've become a role model, Ava, especially for the girls. Role model. Me. The kid who once failed her algebra test because she skipped school to help fix Old Man Becker's leaking basement. When they left, I stood there staring at the drawing. At the van, at my team, at Jonah carrying donut boxes into the warehouse. At my life. And for the first time, I truly understood something. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up for you when the pipes burst. And the people standing around me, laughing, working, building, they were my family now. My parents? They were about to prove just how wrong they'd always been. Because the big ask, the one they were warming up for, it arrived the very next morning. The big ask didn't arrive politely. It didn't knock. It crashed into my phone at 7:14 a.m. on a Thursday while I was elbow deep in a truly cursed pipe that smelled like expired soup and bad decisions. 2 missed calls, then a voicemail. Mom's voice, tight, overly sweet, trembling with the kind of panic you hear right before someone asks for a refund on a blender they bought 3 years ago. Hi, sweetie. I hope you're doing well. Listen, we have a small favor to ask. Just call when you get a second. Nothing major. Nothing major. In my family, nothing major means catastrophic. I didn't need a psychic to know what was coming. I didn't call back. Instead, I wiped grime off my hands, grabbed my wrench, and finished the job. Because for once in my life, my priority was my business, not their emergencies. And sure enough, they didn't wait long. That evening, as I was locking up the warehouse, my phone buzzed again. Madison, my sister. Hey, so Dad's having some plumbing issues at the house. Basement flooding. He thought maybe you, or your team, could come by. He's trying to avoid those big companies. Says you're local. Oh, now I was local. Now I was family. Now I mattered. When? When the bathroom smelled like mushrooms and regret. I read the text aloud. Eli snorted. Reggie yelled, "Tell him we'll send an invoice." Kayla muttered, "I don't work for exposure." Jonah just raised an eyebrow. What are you going to say? I thought for a moment. Then I typed, me. Hi, Madison. We're booked for the next 3 weeks, but we can send you our rate sheet if Dad wants to get on the schedule. Let me know. There, clear, professional, no apology. 60 seconds later, she replied, Madison, seriously? You're going to charge Dad? I stared at the phone, amazed at the audacity. Me. Yes, I charge everyone. That's why it's a business. No response. But I wasn't done. I forwarded the entire thread to Jonah and the crew. They immediately turned it into comedy content. Reggie printed the texts, laminated them, and hung the page in the warehouse bathroom with a sign. In case of entitlement, read this. It became the most visited part of the building. The next day, the situation escalated. Group text from Mom. Mom, Eva, water everywhere. Dad says the pipe is shot. We're in a bind. Please, just this once. Just this once. I closed my eyes. Those 4 words used to be the leash they tugged whenever they needed free labor or free forgiveness. Just this once. Help move furniture. Cover this bill. Fix this appliance. Clean this mess. Save this situation. Just this once, and then again, and again, and again. Don't respond yet, Jonah said, reading over my shoulder. Let them sit with it. But I didn't need time. I knew my answer. I wasn't their fallback plan. I wasn't their emergency plumber. I wasn't the daughter who would drop everything to rescue the same people who never showed up for me. So I did the most powerful thing I've ever done. I said nothing. Silence is a complete sentence. What happened next surprised me. Not my parents. Savannah. Because apparently, the universe wasn't satisfied with just one dramatic fire. I ran into her at a networking event, Jonah's client showcase, technically. She approached with that fake sweet smile rich girls use when they're about to insult you politely. Eva, she said, voice sugary, I've been hearing a lot about you. Wish I could say the same, I replied. She laughed, like I'd made a joke. Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. You know, it's really nice that Jonah finally has someone steady. He always needed structure. Someone who could keep him on track. She gestured vaguely toward my outfit. Work boots, flannel, probably a smudge of silicone caulk on my sleeve. I guess you ground him. The implication was clear. Jonah was the prize. I was the support system. Pipe dream was an accessory, not an accomplishment. Before I could speak, Jonah appeared at my side, slipping his arm around me. Savannah, he said dryly. Eva doesn't ground me. She leads. I follow. Savannah's smile cracked just slightly. Jonah continued, and let's be clear, pipe dream is hers, not ours. Hers. I'm lucky she lets me help. Savannah blinked. Then she excused herself with a stiff smile and walked away. Jonah turned to me. You okay? I swallowed past the sting Savannah left behind. I'm fine. You're more than fine, he said. You're the one building this. Don't let her rewrite your story. I nodded. And that moment, that small, steady moment, lodged itself in my chest. Because Jonah wasn't defending me. He was stating facts. And he wasn't wrong. The following week, the big shift happened. A teacher from a local elementary school reached out. A 4th grader wrote an essay about wanting to be a pipe boss like Miss Eva. They invited me to speak for Career Day. I showed up with tools. Let kids hold wrenches. Let them pretend to fix things. Answered their rapid-fire questions. Do you make $1 million? Do pipes explode? Does it smell bad? Will you fix my house? And then one girl tugged on my sleeve. You look really strong, she said. My mom says women can't do plumbing, but I think she's wrong. I crouched so we were eye to eye. She is, I said. You can do anything. Tools don't care if you're a girl. She grinned, her 2 front teeth missing. That moment felt more real, more honest, more important than every fake congratulations my family had sent in the past 6 months. Driving back to the warehouse, I passed my parents' neighborhood. I didn't stop, didn't text, didn't even slow down. Because I finally understood something I'd spent 19 years trying to unlearn. You can love people from a distance, especially when they only love you up close when it benefits them. 2 weeks later, Jonah unveiled his final surprise. The billboard, not the mock-up, the real one, right off the freeway. Visible from the exit where half my high school used to taunt me for settling. The tagline, Pipe Dream Plumbing locally owned, proudly independent. Yes, Mom, it's a real business. I laughed so hard I had to pull the van over. Mom didn't laugh. She texted, Mom, We still haven't heard from you. We're trying to fix things. Let us know when we can talk. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Because everything I wanted to say was too honest, too raw, too heavy. Instead, I muted the conversation. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Some doors don't need to be slammed. Some bridges don't need to be burned. Some relationships don't need to be mended. They just need to be left behind. The next morning, I pulled up to the warehouse to find two kids waiting by the door with their mom. "Are you Eva?" the boy asked. "Depends," I said. "Am I in trouble?" He shook his head earnestly and held up a hand-drawn flyer. Career Week guest speaker. Pipe boss. Eva. Behind him, Reggie yelled from inside the building. "Someone clogged the sink with dried grout again." Kayla shouted, "I'll handle it." Jonah appeared with donuts. Eli waved a clipboard, asking if we could squeeze in 4 more calls today. I looked at them, this chaotic, hardworking, loyal crew. My crew, my family. And I realized this wasn't just about sinks. It wasn't about proving myself. It wasn't about Savannah or Madison or Mom's sudden PR campaign. It was about value, mine. And I was done letting anyone, family, ex-girlfriend of my boyfriend, society, decide what that was worth. This life, this business, these vans, these tools, these people, I built this. And no one gets to put a price on it but me. If the story until now was a slow crack, this was the moment everything finally broke open. Because families like mine, they don't accept boundaries. Not easily, not gracefully, not quietly. They test them, push them, press against them like fingers on a bruise, checking if it still hurts. And for a long time it did. But by the time the final push came, I wasn't the girl eating dry chicken at a family dinner anymore. I was Eva D'Antonio, shop owner, boss, pipe dream founder, builder of her own damn life. And the next test was about to prove just how much I'd changed. It happened late one evening when I was alone in the warehouse, finishing inventory. The vans were parked in their bays like sleeping beasts. The shelves were neatly labeled in Kayla's handwriting. Reggie's Bluetooth speaker hummed quietly with lo-fi beats because he refuses to let the shop be silent like a crypt. That's when my phone lit up with a family group call. I didn't answer. Then the text came rapid fire. "Mom, Eva, please, this is serious." "Dad, we need you." "Madison, just pick up. It's not about the pipes this time." That part froze me. Not about the pipes? Then what? I let the phone buzz until it stopped. 30 seconds later, it buzzed again. A call from Dad, solo. I almost let it ring out, but old instincts die slowly. I picked up. "Eva," he said, voice low, "your mother wanted me to call because you weren't answering her." "Because I don't want to," I said calmly. He ignored that. "We're in trouble," he continued. "Financial trouble." I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course it wasn't emotional reconciliation. Of course it wasn't accountability. Of course it wasn't an apology for years of minimization. It was a request. Always a request. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He hesitated, not long enough to suggest guilt, but long enough to confirm calculation. "We need a loan." There it was, the thing they'd been soft-pedaling toward for weeks. "How much?" My voice was flat. "A small one," Dad said. "Just 15,000. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. "And why," I asked, "would you think I have $15,000 to hand out?" "Your business is doing well," Mom said suddenly. She'd clearly been listening on speaker. "You have vans, a warehouse, a billboard." There it was again. That assumption that success equaled surplus, that visibility meant wealth, that I'd been building all this so they could eventually dip into it. I took a slow, measured breath. "Mom, Dad, I'm going to say this once." The line went quiet. I don't loan money to people who never believed I could make it. Mom inhaled sharply. Dad muttered my name like a warning. Madison whispered, "Eva, come on." But I was done letting guilt drown my truth. "You treated my work like a joke," I said. "Like a phase. You only started caring when it got big, when you could brag, when it looked good on Facebook." "No," Mom snapped. "We were proud." "You were embarrassed," I corrected, "until I became useful." Another silence. This one deeper, heavier, more honest. "We're family," Dad said finally, voice cracking just enough to sound rehearsed. "Family helps each other." I felt something in my chest loosen. "Yes," I said softly, "family does help each other." Then I delivered the part that changed everything. "But you're not my family in the way that matters." Mom gasped. Madison cursed under her breath. Dad whispered, "Eva, don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I've just stopped pretending." Then I hung up and blocked the group chat, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. I didn't expect what came next. It wasn't backlash, it wasn't more guilt, it wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was quiet, peaceful almost. A silence I had been craving for years without realizing it. Because when you cut out the noise, you finally hear your own voice. And mine said, "You're done begging for love that never existed." A few days later, the final piece fell into place. I arrived at the warehouse early. The sunrise hit Vanessa 1, 2, and 3 just right. 3 gleaming symbols of everything I'd built without permission. Jonah was inside labeling storage bins. Eli was checking inventory. Reggie was eating cereal straight from the box. Kayla was wrestling with a stubborn bolt. The smell of pipe glue and old coffee hung in the air like a badge of honor. Then the 2 fourth graders from career day came running up the door again. "Miss Eva, we made you something." They handed me a poster board covered in drawings. Me with a cape, me with a wrench, me standing on top of a van like a superhero. Across the top in childish letters, "Pipe Boss, Eva our hero." And I felt it. Simple, clean, undeniable. I belonged here, not in the home where my potential was a punchline, not in the family that valued appearances more than effort, not in the expectations I was never allowed to fulfill unless they approved the path. Here, in this warehouse, with these people, with this life. My crew looked at the poster and immediately started debating where to hang it. Jonah kissed the side of my head softly. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I whispered. "For the first time, I actually am." And then I said the words I didn't even know were waiting inside me. I didn't build a plumbing company, I built a home. Because family isn't blood. Family is who shows up when things flood, not who suddenly remembers you when they need a lifeline. And my worth? That's not up for negotiation. Not anymore. Not ever again.